Welcome everybody. Tonight is Tuesday, January 7th. It's 7 p.m. about. Tonight is a Planning Zoning Commission public hearing and general meeting. We're here in Town Hall, room 216. First order of business is Happy New Year to everybody. Welcome back to 2025.
Happy birthday.
Oh yes, we'll get into that in a second.
Is that your birthday?
No, not today. But yes, we have not discussed birthdays in a while. David Genovese had his birthday a couple of weeks, a week before Christmas, so we wish him a happy birthday and hope he lasts a few more years to build his building. And I also had a birthday over the vacation. My wife told me I get 10 years off for good behavior, so I'm 10 years younger than I really am. What else? The first item, agenda, getting right into the public hearing. The first item is a special permit application, number 238F as in Frank, PL 24-163, Stone Garden Piercing Studio at 883 Boston Post Road. Proposed to establish a jewelry and piercing studio in the first floor space formerly occupied by Check Body Mind. The property is located on the north/west side of Boston Post Road, approximately 80 feet northeast of its intersection with West Avenue, and is shown on Assessor's Map number 17 as lot number 3 in the Central Business District zone. Gentlemen, what do we got?
Yeah, this is a new business that is proposing to go into the space on the Post Road previously occupied by Check Body Mind. This new piercing studio is specializing in the sale of jewelry. It's an appointment-based business. We understand that the business owner will be doing appointments between approximately 30 and 90 minutes. Like I said, he's going to be selling jewelry and is primarily focused on piercing ears. This application went before the Architectural Review Board for approval of signage for the business. The ARB approved that signage on December 17th. The application was also referred out to the Fire Marshal's office. The Fire Marshal, Bob Bush, submitted a comment for the record dated December 4th, noting no issues with the proposed tenant. We have Brendan Kelly here this evening to present the application and answer any questions that the commission may have.
So where's this a special permit? That's where we're seeing.
Correct.
Fantastic. Sir, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, what are you going to do here?
Just state your name for the
I'm
record,
sorry.
please.
Oh, sorry. My name is Brendan Kelly. So, yeah, I'm just looking to establish a piercing studio on the Post Road. We'll be a piercing-only studio, so I know tattooing and piercing is usually lumped together, but mine will be unique in that there will be no tattooing there. It'll be piercing only. We'll be dealing primarily in solid gold jewelry. We'll be partnering with a company called Body Vision Los Angeles, which will be a formal jewelry partner of mine. And that'll be the only company that I'll carry with gold products. And the business structure is pretty simple. You know, people will come in and either shop for jewelry for a new or existing piercing. You don't need to have a piercing, or you don't need to be getting a piercing in order to buy jewelry. Lots of people come in and buy jewelry for existing ones. So people's appointments will typically take between, like Fred said, between 30 and 90 minutes. 90 minutes for the longer ones that might have a couple of piercings that they're interested in, and then on the shorter side for existing piercings that need new jewelry or just a singular piercing.
Okay. It looks like you have on your floor plan, which is what I kind of sort of focus on, 4 rooms. Is that right?
Yes.
I mean, my kids got pierced ears, and I thought they just did it in like Macy's.
Yeah. So lots of differences to be made, I guess, between large-scale corporate piercing companies like Claire's and Piercing Pagodas and things, and then a professional piercing studio like mine. The safety aspect is the biggest one. Piercing guns are universally unsafe. They can't be properly sterilized. So the most importance that I place on is the safety aspect of it. There are lots of dangers associated with piercing if you don't know what you're doing. And the Association of Professional Piercers, which I'm personally a part of and the studio will be a part of as well, is a national health and safety organization that has some overarching health and safety standards for this industry specific to it. So yeah, there are places like that you can go to get pierced, but this is kind of offering a different side of it. There's some examples in the application of the work that I do as well. It's just, for lack of a better term, a step above a Claire's or a piercing wheel.
Right, but it says the primary work is gonna be ear and some facial piercings, like her best friend's got a nose piercing, and they don't go into the rooms. That's why I'm trying to figure out why you need so many rooms if.
The rooms are just for additional piercers eventually down the line. Initially, it'll be just me, but I anticipate hiring other piercers. There are many studios like mine that have up to 7 piercers. It just depends on the demand that you have from the community. And I got the space because of the potentiality for growth.
Okay, so if it was fully staffed, you're gonna have 4 rooms times 2 is 8, plus the jewelry section, which is 9, 10, 11, and 4 seats. It's like 15 people in the building?
Not that many, no. There's only going to be 1 procedure bed for each room.
Right, but there's a piercer and there's a person, right? A customer and doing the work?
Right.
That's 2.
Yeah, in the event that I would have that many other piercers besides me, I'm looking to make the 2 rooms that are closest to the lobby 1 room. I went into the space today and saw that they're a little bit smaller than anticipated, so I'd likely down the road make that 1 room, so there'd only be 3. So 6 would be the max amount of people that would be getting pierced at the same time, so to speak.
So do you have 6 employees with the 6 piercers?
No, I just have myself, and then I have 1 counter person right now, so somebody to help me with the phones.
Right. I get it, but
Yeah.
I'm talking down the line. It's day 1. There's you're gonna hear crickets, but
Yeah.
3 years from now, if it goes good, you're gonna be packed,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So I care about 3 years down the line, not just today.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to make sure that I would have the ability to grow, and it's not going to be overpacked inside. I think it's a pretty spacious place.
Okay.
So, but if capacity is a concern, I don't think that it will be over capacity.
Jeremy, it's the tattoo parlors are not allowed in town, right?
Right, the Darien doesn't have tattoo parlors. We would consider this a personal service business,
Okay.
right? It's one-on-one. Brendan would work with whoever, and he
Right.
would go in and say, I want an earring. So you pick out the earring, Brendan would put it in your ear. I did speak to Mindy Chambrelli of the Health Department today, and she said that they would need, if approved by the commission, they would need Health Department approval, who would look at just what Brendan said,
Right.
making sure that they're aware of the needles and things. And she did mention the same thing, that using needles is better than a piercing gun.
Right.
But it would need Health Department approval.
Okay. And this application says we specifically will not be offering any services for tattoos.
Correct.
So so that doesn't matter. Now, what about when this came across once, I don't know, 5 years ago with regards to acupuncture and needles over at 1020? I know you started to research it.
Yeah, I wasn't able, you asked that question earlier today. I was not able to find, and I don't recall anything about that. I do know that the commission approved, I'll call it a number of acupuncture places, the ones that rang a bell.
Yeah, but that's not in the CBD zone.
Right, those were personal service. One was in the design commercial zone. One was in design business 1, which is DB now. The other was also in the DB zone. And then when you talk about, I'll use, when we were talking about acupuncture, I said, oh, what about needles? Like Quest Diagnostics was still is a personal service use, and that was also in the design business zone.
Right, so this is not, we're in the CBD zone here, so it's
Right.
not permitted.
Let me take a look here. CBD zone, principal use requiring special personal service. Yeah, it would be principal use requiring a special permit under section 723F in the CBD zone.
Okay, so they're permitted in other zones, but not the CBD zone, that's why we're here?
No, even the others were special permit uses where the commission could regulate hours of operation, ensure that there's adequate parking, et cetera.
Great. Okay, because I have an issue with it being in the CBD zone, that's my problem. I want to open up to other people. You good for now?
Okay, yeah.
Any questions for the applicant?
Quick one, is there any state licensing for what you do?
There's not. I've looked into it quite a bit because I'm used to, I most previously worked in California, so I'm used to California state regulations, which are different. They're different state by state, which is a nod back to the APP too. It's the APP is more overarching, and they set their own health and safety standards to be a member of them. But in Connecticut, it's very different. So there is no licensing that's done by the state of Connecticut. I called the main health department in Hartford to try to get clarification, and they just told me to reach out to the local health department. So I called Darien as well, and they just said that they would reach out to me upon this application, because it would get sent to their department, and just let me know if they needed anything from me. So that's what I've been able to find thus far.
Okay. And as to parking, I could imagine that you, a customer, maybe an extra person, is maybe 3 cars involved, but
Right.
if you do grow, and I see you refer to 51 spaces in the Tilly parking area behind the building. I'm used to seeing those spots pretty well used.
Yeah.
Do you think there's enough flexibility to add more cars out there for your folks?
But that's really.
I'm just basing off, I've been down to the space a couple of times, and I've noticed that the Tilly parking lot seemed to have adequate amount when I was there, at least. And then especially on the street in front of the building too is pretty easy as well. So I don't anticipate parking being an issue, but extra parking is something that could definitely be explored down the line if we were to get significantly busier than we anticipate right now.
Yeah. Don't we, couldn't we suggest that, or couldn't we require that employees park elsewhere, like on Mechanic or something
Correct.
like that?
The famous Mechanic Street lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's, I think, 90
Street,
spaces,
something or
there's
other.
200 permits there.
Right, the
Yeah.
Mechanic Street is across the street, it's across Boston Post Road. Brendan had mentioned to me that most of his business is done on weekends. He proposes to be closed Monday and Tuesday. Most of the business would be Saturday, Sunday. The Tilly lot, as many of you know, there's a lower, I'll call it the lower level, it's right behind this row of buildings on west. Then there's a middle level, which is used generally by the employees who work in those buildings. And then the most upper level, which is behind the Andrew Stefano maybe?
Yeah, that's
There's usually spaces way back there. There's also on-street, and across the street, there's no on-street. There's parking on Mechanic Street itself, near where Heights Pizza is.
Okay. There's no permits required, I know not Tilly, but the upper level of Tilly, there's no permit, and over by, what you say is the
That's 2-hour parking back there.
2 on the corner.
That's like Tilly Pond Park.
Okay.
You can't have employees there.
Right, the employees, Steve, right, you have to have employees be somewhere that they can be all day.
Yeah.
Which is the issue that's behind the Brooks Brothers now.
Yes.
Marvita has 3 employees all the time and probably 8 to 10 people in there. Parking's never really an issue, and that's right next door. 2 doors down from you?
It's directly next door, yeah. I anticipate they have more foot traffic on a daily basis than I would, just because in my specific industry, people just spend more time indoors than it would be to like buy a juice. It just takes a little bit more time, especially with the counter person helping you navigate the cases. You know, there's going to be 300 to 400 different pieces of jewelry in there, so it'll take a good amount of time for people to come in and just kind of browse.
Yeah, but I think parking won't be an issue.
Everything, the special permits are everything.
Parking's already an issue.
The parking traffic's already an issue on the post road. We're good.
You can use your bike.
Jamie, any questions?
No, about parking was fine, but it's answered, thank you.
Can you talked about one of the reasons you've identified this location was for potential growth.
Mhm.
Can you talk to your experience with regards to the demand that you anticipate seeing here?
Sure.
And give me credence as to, where you come up with that.
Sure. I think a good portion of it would be that a lot of like the board here today and a lot of people that I've talked with in Darien aren't super familiar with what I do. So there is just a lack of a similar business in this general area, and I think that with the jewelry company that I partnered with that works with solid gold and genuine gemstones and is going to be a formal partner of mine, I think that it's a market that's just relatively unexplored here, and I think that there's a lot of potential for people to be interested in it. There's a good amount of jewelry stores in a fair vicinity to where I am, and I'm in the same general vein as that, but different enough.
Where do you usually find studios like this?
There's 2 or 3 of them in Hartford County.
Okay.
There's one in Vernon that's very similar to what I do, carries the same jewelry company, and then there's one in Newington as well. So they're just in a different spot, but closest to here would be Manhattan, New York. There's lots of them there, and in Brooklyn and in neighboring areas in New York.
Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah,
No, good.
Mr. Michael? Would anybody in the general public like to speak to this application? No, okay. We just have to, me personally, I gotta think about this one, because you say that a big part of your business is the jewelry, but on your site plan, that's the smallest portion of it, right, the sales, because it's just in the corner. And then the other thing is, how do you address security with regards to this jewelry? It says some of the piece might be $5,000.
So security is going to be with a security system that's installed. I purchased it already, but it'll have glass break sensors on it, and there will be camera monitoring and door sensors as well. And then there's going to be a gun safe that all the jewelry will be removed from the cases at nighttime and put in a safe every night.
Because that's an issue in town.
Okay.
Something happened with public knowledge, but was it Harvey Jewelers?
Yes.
Got
Yeah.
hit
Yep.
in Thanksgiving or something like that?
Yeah, it was this fall, I think, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else to add? Okay. With that said, or not, anything from you guys?
No?
Okay. With that said, I would entertain a motion to close. David makes a motion for a second. Adam makes a second. All in favor? Okay. We'll review it and get back to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Alrighty. Next item up for bid. Special permit application number 277D as in dog, PL 24-172, Spring Pilates LLC at 13 Grove Street. Proposal to establish a Pilates studio in the first floor space formerly occupied by Le Boudoir. The subject property is located on the southwest corner formed by the intersection of Day Street and Grove Street. It's shown on Assessor's Map number 73 as lots 15 and 16 in the Central Business District zone. This was that hair salon store next to the butcher shop downtown. It's part of a land condominium, but it's the 2 lots and it's got the parking in the center. Jeremy, Fred, what do we got?
Yeah, that's right. It's this is another personal service type business that is proposed in the Central Business District in the space formerly occupied by the hair salon on Grove Street. The applicant proposes to start a new Pilates business. The previous approval, which we printed out for this evening, for the previous use for the hair salon, had some significant conditions of approval relative to parking on the site. We'll note.
Did you give us that you talking about? Or no?
No, this was not provided to the
So we're
commission.
gonna upload it
Okay.
tonight?
Go ahead, but keep going. I'm sorry, Fred.
We'll make
Right,
a
I
note to
apologize.
upload that.
There are 12 on-site parking spaces, which are governed by a shared parking agreement between the subject building at 13 Grove Street as well as 1015 Boston Post Road, the building that fronts on the Post Road. The condition from March 2015, the commission noted that, or required that the parking for residential and first floor retail customers be on site. It does not allow employees of any of the first floor businesses to park on site. The building owners are responsible for enforcing parking in the shared parking lot. So those 12 parking spaces are shared amongst 3 residential tenants on the second floor of 13 Grove Street, several businesses, including the butcher shop and what would be this new Pilates studio on the first floor of 13 Grove Street, as well as several businesses fronting Boston Post Road. We do note, of course, that there are some other parking opportunities in the general
There's also
vicinity.
apartments on top of the other building, too.
Correct, correct.
So there's more than 3 apartments, there's 3 each, there's 6.
Okay, yeah,
There's 4 businesses and 6 residential tenants.
Fjord Fisheries, and I believe it's
Butcher shop.
Blue Mercury.
yeah.
Blue Mercury
Do
and the
you know how
baby store.
large the apartments are?
These
How
are all
many
one
bedrooms?
bedrooms. But keep going, you're on a roll.
Yeah, so like I said, I mean, there are several other parking opportunities in the general vicinity of the business, including the Grove Street parking lot, on-street parking. We understand that the employees of the previous hair salon were parking in the Coons lot, several blocks away. Let's see, what else do we have? The applicant's representative and business owner are here this evening to present more of the details on the operation of the business and to answer any questions that the commission has.
Fantastic. Welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening. Just state your name and affiliation for the record.
Okay, my name is Molly Jones Boyle. I am the owner of Spring Pilates.
Fantastic. Where's your other location? Do you have another location?
This is going to be my first location. I've been teaching in Darien at the Club Pilates in Darien for the last 7 years.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
All right. We did that a couple weeks ago. There was a guy who worked at one and opened up another one. It was taekwondo. Karate guy, right?
Yep.
That's your guy. So what do you plan to do?
So I would like to open a Pilates studio with a little bit different twist than some of the other studios that are in the area, and that this studio, the previous salon, had 2 rooms. One of the rooms will have 9 Pilates reformers, and the other room I'm keeping as almost an empty room for mat Pilates, yoga, meditation classes, sound therapy and sound healing classes, as well as a variety of wellness workshops, whether that's men's health, women's health, using different modalities such as like energy healers and having nutritionists come in and, kind of completing the overall picture of wellness.
Okay. Let me just get your take on it. Since we talked so much, or he talked so much about parking, it looks like you have, 9 persons in the class? I don't know much about Pilates, so you can
Yeah.
help me out a little bit.
Yeah, so I'll have 9 reformers. There'll be 1 instructor.
So that's 10?
10 people total.
Okay.
A lot of people prefer to work out in the mornings, and a lot of people prefer to work out early mornings. I usually teach classes starting at 6:30, 7:30. I don't think I'll have a 6:30 every single day,
Okay.
several days a week, but a lot of my classes will be held before most of the businesses in the area are even open.
Okay.
And we will have a busy morning, we hope, but my plan is to end classes around 12:30, to have a break in the middle of the day, to have 2 classes in the evening, some days starting at 4:30 and having another at 5:30, and then maybe some days we're shifting to a 5:30, 6:30. The landlord had expressed concern about noise, just because he has upstairs tenants, so, we have something in the lease that there will be no noise concerns after 7:30 at night, so there'll never be anything past then. So I'd say I'm going to have a front desk person maybe showing up around 9 o'clock every day, so that would be an 11th person. And then, the other classes, I'm starting small with just the Pilates classes first. We'll add in some other classes later. So I want to try to stagger it a little bit so that you're not going to have a ton of people in the space at the same time.
It's for Pilates in this, I'm going to call it age bracket. This isn't a drop off, right? It's like my daughter
Oh, yeah, no. No,
and like
you
Amy's
can't.
on Pilates.
No, I mean, if there was a teenager that was, most people, we don't recommend doing it under the age of 15.
Okay,
So,
but
I
these
mean,
people
it
are
would be
driving
like-
their own cars is what I'm getting at.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I mean, it's interesting. I have a couple clients who say they live in the area that, they could, in the summer, ride their bike, or I've even had people walk or run to the studio as like a warm-up if they live nearby. But yes, most people would be driving to the studio.
Okay. So then, the parking lot that's directly across the street, that's part of,
It's called the Grove Street lot, which is a municipal lot, has a mix of 2-hour parking. Right now, I went by there today, the new steakhouse
Right.
will likely be opening in a couple months. But the lot gets pretty full. The busiest, reading through the prior approval for Le Boudoir from many years ago, the busiest time in that vicinity is generally seen as Thursdays and Fridays at lunchtime.
okay,
So what we talked about is that Molly's classes will end at 12:30. Usually the commission dictates, as she mentioned, 15 minutes between classes.
Right.
Allow one group to, be parked on the street or in the lot to move out and let the next group come in. So Grove Street lot is right there. There's some on-street parking on Day Street, a little bit on Grove Street, some on Brook Street. We would discourage parking in the movie theater lot because that's a privately owned lot.
Great.
But the town-owned lot is behind Flower Water Salt, behind the steakhouse, and there's spaces there.
And
And
the
the
Grove-
Grove lot, of course, is a couple blocks away.
Right, and the Grove Street lot, is there any commuter parking there anymore?
There is not.
You gotta
It's
go
not
across,
right.
you gotta go to the end of the Grove Street, across, and then you get the
Correct,
side.
what they call the squabbling area.
Right.
But about 10 years ago, they turned that Grove Street lot for customer parking. And that's why
Right, yeah.
you'll see some 2-hour
Sorry.
signs.
She knows I'm in the meeting, Papa's watching. Sorry about that.
There's
Okay,
57 parking spaces in the Grove Street lot. The town changed that in 2015 to make those 57 lots dedicated
great.
for shoppers as opposed to commuters.
Because one of the best parking spaces we got was from that guy Albert Esposito who built this thing, remember him?
Albert Orlando, yes.
Yeah, he
yes,
built
yes.
it, and he had the
He
great
did it
parking
As
stuff.
part of the original construction, did a very
Right.
thorough analysis, which resulted in, oh yeah, most of the times it's okay, but that, for whatever reason, everyone goes out at lunch hour, for whatever reason, under normal weather, Thursdays and Fridays seem to be more
Right.
hectic.
Okay, so with regard to, so you have a class of 9,
Mhm.
right? You're teaching the class, that's 10. There's maybe a person that sits at the desk that starts at 9 a.m., that's 11.
Mhm.
Now, you said there's a second room. Is something going on in the second room at the same time, or is that
No,
a different time?
I'm only anticipating that maybe 2 classes a day would be in that room.
In the
and-
second room?
In the second room.
And do the classes go on at the same exact time, or not really?
That part I'm still trying to figure out. I mean, there is going to be a door, so one class, I mean, what I was explaining to the owner is that the music that I play in class is not like a Soul Cycle or like it's not loud, like booming music. Like everything, my whole vibe is serenity, calm, so it's going to be like quiet, mellow music. And in the other room is going to be, which I'm calling the Serenity Room, is meditation that's going to be like extremely quiet. I would imagine that we have one early in the morning and we might have one in the evening. So during the middle of the day, when you spoke about the busiest time of the day, there wouldn't be anything going on in that room. And in the evening, if we have, say, a wellness workshop, I would try to structure it so that it starts at maybe like 6, or it was on a day where classes ended at 5:30. We do a wellness workshop where an expert in their field comes in, whether that's an integrative medicine doctor or a nutritionist or somebody coming in, and then we would have maybe the same exact amount. Like both rooms can only fit 9 people, the way I've measured it out. So depending on where, I mean, the other thing I've thought about doing is if a tennis team wants to come in and they want to do a Pilates class, and then we moved into the other room to do like some snacks and, something like that. So I'd say for the most part, there will only be about 10 or 11 people in the studio at any given time.
Okay. Because that's I mean, if you're gonna have something, I'm getting deep into the weeds, but if you're gonna have something at like 6 o'clock, and the new restaurant where Mike's gonna hang out is cranking at 6,
Right.
then you're all
Right.
butts and then the computers are leaving.
I mean,
That's just the issue we think about, but
Right.
I know there's a lot of parking there. Me personally, I don't think Darien is a downtown parking problem.
Right.
And I've said that for 10 years. You know, but other people think there is a parking problem. And the other thing, you also gotta remember, you have 116 brand new apartments there. I gotta believe some people are gonna walk across the street and go to your
Right.
studio.
Yeah.
not
Also,
like-
you
it's not
know,
like
all the new
everyone's
businesses
driving.
coming in. I mean, at Club Pilates, I would have a lot of people, a lot of men who worked in the building that was torn down, walk across the street, do a class, and go back to work, you know, during their lunch hour. So I hope that there'll be walking traffic that will come in and not be driving cars.
Great.
And the anticipation is that most of the classes would be held early in the mornings. I believe you guys have a copy of the potential schedule that she had come up with, where
Did he state his name?
No, I was
correctly?
just gonna ask him when he was finished.
Yeah, just state your name.
my name's Jan Alifrez. I'm with Zelda's Needle and Cooper, or we represent.
So you're the landlord?
No, we represent Spring Pilates
Oh,
and
okay.
Molly Boyle.
Sorry, last name is Alfred?
Alifrez,
Alifrez.
ALAFRIZ. But yeah, as I was saying, primarily these classes would be held early in the morning so as to avoid parking issues. And then I had just driven by there before we came here at about 6 o'clock, and that parking lot was not overly busy. I was able to park fairly easily. So, I mean, I believe even with these classes around 5:30 and 6:30, the parking shouldn't be
Great.
too much of an issue.
Because the way it's designed, I call that little area, mini Arthur Avenue. What you want to do is have the people leave your studio, go across the street, get a cup of coffee, go
Absolutely.
next door and buy a loaf of bread,
Right.
and then go to the fish store, get fish, and go home.
Right.
So it's not like when you say the classes aren't going to overlap, the way it's thought out master plan is that they're supposed to leave their car there for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Because you go there, you take your class, and you go shop around for 2 hours, and then you go home.
Right.
So it's not like, you know, there's 15-minute downtime between classes to get people to move their cars and leave.
Right. Doesn't always happen.
We don't want that to happen,
Right,
to be honest
yeah.
with you. You want
Right.
to go out of there and go shopping someplace
Yeah,
else.
I mean, one of the reasons I chose the location is for the synergy of all the different businesses that,
Right.
you know, it works really well together.
I mean, a month ago, we approved some, like, a kid's dance studio at the end of the post road. There's 5 parking spaces, but there's 30 kids that go into the class because they're all drop-off kids.
Right,
It doesn't matter. There's not an issue there.
right,
And once you leave the class, there's nothing to do in that neck of the woods.
right,
So we would get in the car and leave.
right.
Okay. So we just got to make sure we can figure that out. Amy, anything on this one?
Did the landlord express any interest with you conducting classes at 6:30 in the morning with the residents upstairs?
He didn't really seem to have a problem with that. He said most of the residents work. He said they usually are out early in the morning, that they all have jobs where they leave the residents. So he wasn't that concerned about a 6:30 in the morning class. I mean, I did tell him, I personally don't like listening to loud music at 6:30 in the morning. So, you know, the class, like I said, my method and my way of teaching is with very calming music. So even at 6:30 in the morning, I wouldn't be like blasting music in the studio. And his concern was really more at evening. You know, he was like, I just don't want noise after 7:30 at night. So,
The landlord also hasn't received any complaints from the upstairs tenants from the previous tenant, the hair studio, about noise. Presumably they were playing music because there's
yeah, there's a
a
lot of
speaker
speakers.
system.
There's
There's
like
a
10
speaker
speakers in the
system there.
ceiling as it is.
That business never took off. So you're comparing a Volkswagen to a Cadillac.
Well,
But if they,
That's why they're
you know,
not there anymore.
presumably there was at least music playing, but tenants of the residents never complained to the landlord of loud noises late at night or during the day or anything like that.
Okay.
My other question is just, seems awfully close to Club Pilates.
I actually had a very long conversation today with the regional manager of the Club Pilates, and we had a long talk about what I'm doing because, again, I've been the lead. I helped open that studio. I've been the lead instructor. I have a lot of followers in Darien. And I said to her, I said, you know, I am doing my own thing. I want to create something different from Club Pilates. And Club Pilates' niche, so to speak, is that, you know, they have very low prices. It's a franchise. They run a lot of people through that studio, and it's all membership-based. what I'm trying to do is something completely different that's a much more elevated experience in a smaller boutique. And I said, I think that almost all classes in that studio have a wait list of, you have 12 people in a class and you have a wait list every single day for every single class of like 6 to 8 people. So what that tells me is there's enough Pilates to go around, and there's a lot of people that want to do Pilates. So I said, I don't want to compete with you. I don't want to steal anything from you. I think we can coexist in harmony and peacefully, and we each have our product that we offer out.
Okay.
And my prices are going to be a little bit more than theirs. So, there's going to be that, because my experience is going to be more of a bespoke boutique experience.
Thank you.
Mike, anything? Jamie? George?
No, sir.
We don't have to notify the tenants, like with proof of mailing for something like this when they're above a business, do we?
That's correct, it would just be the owners.
Owners, right? Just the
Same
owners
thing.
of it. Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to check on that.
You might tell the dude upstairs he's getting
Well, whatever.
dance studio downstairs.
And in the old, and this one's more for Jeremy, in the old application, not the Grove Street lot in the back, but imagine if you're looking at the Grove Street lot, the lot on the right side behind the bank.
Yes.
Behind the old Brooks Brothers area.
That's
Was there any
private.
stipulation, right, of like enforcing no parking in that lot? Because you could see, once that road gets jammed up with cars on both sides, people start looking at, oh, I could just park over here behind this bank because it's kind of an unmaintained lot and it looks like it's just like the Grove Street lot.
That's a good question. We were out there and we did notice it's private property behind Darien Row 8 Bank. At least that's what it used to be called. And so they have some very strong signage in terms of, for these businesses only, I think they put it 2
Yeah.
hours,
Yeah.
and we tow. So I think that's very clear from that private property. So we would encourage the owner here to get the word out where people should park. Whether it's on street or wherever it might be. Boston Post Road only has 1 hour parking. So it would be kind of a rush to park on the Post Road and park here. Because if the class is an hour, you're not enjoying the Pilates, you're worried about getting a ticket the whole time.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
find a private lot or 2 hour parking somewhere.
But yeah, in general, that Grove Street lot, even on the noon on a Saturday, there's always parking. I mean, I go to the butcher shop all the time, so I don't think, like, I'm on Steve's side. I don't think there's that much of a parking issue for people who really need it.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's not a parking issue in general in town, but it's everyone else thinks there is. That lot you're talking about is privately owned. David Genovese, you go behind 1020, there's a guy that sits there and monitors you, and I got booted out when I was going to Granola. I'm like, I'm going to Granola. You can't park here. I was like, but
I've had the same
Dulcetti
thing.
might do the same thing at his lot, but you're.
The Club Pilates where I've been working, there's been numerous arguments over that parking lot because of the tenants above and putting signs out. And at one point, it even said Club Pilates employees and customers, and I had parked my car there, and someone from the upstairs came and plastered this huge orange sign on my windshield. And I had to march up there and say, I'm sorry, but like, what's this? So, there have been, over the years, I know there's been a lot of arguing over that parking lot. That's a private parking lot, different than where I'm going.
Right.
So, that's the only one I know of that actually has had problems.
Otherwise, no. I'm good.
So at the end of the day, the max persons that you would have inside the space at one point in time is somewhere around
I'd
20?
say 20?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, like max. That will be very, very rare that I would have 20 people in that studio. And like I said, the workshops will probably do like one a month. I'm not looking to do like,
Just for the record, the Darien swim team girls used to have to drive to Greenwich to go to Pilates, and there's
Really?
30 girls on the team.
Well, and that's one of my things, is I've done privates with a lot of girls at Darien High, whether it's dancers, track runners, volleyball girls, swimmers. So I want to do a whole teen program where girls can come in, lacrosse teams can come in,
It's 7 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. I did it many times.
Yeah, good.
So-
Bring them.
Okay. Would anybody in the general public like to speak to this application? Okay, seeing none. Anything else from you guys? Everybody else is kind of set? All right. With that said, entertain a motion to close. Mike makes a motion, he makes a second, all those in favor? Okay, we'll go over it and then get back to you as soon as we can.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
All right, that's the end of the public hearing. Before we go into the general meeting, I'd like to just readjust the agenda a little bit. The only thing I want to do is move up the adoption of the 2025 Aqua Protection Schedule agency next. So can I get a motion to change the agenda? Adam makes a motion, Jamie makes a second. Okay, we're going to switch the agenda. Can we move the adoption of the 2025 Aqua Protection Agency schedule to right now?
Sure. I'll give everyone a briefing. I know
Very important.
by statute, the Planning and Zoning Commission is also the Aquifer Protection Agency in Darien. Because of the nature of the aquifer in Darien, we don't see much, if any, development in it. And the commission's been the Aquifer Protection Agency for many, many years. Maybe we've seen one application, but not much more than that. So we usually plan on meeting once a year, and invariably that meeting is canceled. But legally, we have to publish a schedule and file it with the town clerk before the end of January. So you can see, I think we put in your packets, we've scheduled one meeting this year. I think it's on January 21st. And as it stands, it's likely to be canceled. We do need to adopt the schedule.
Okay, so with that said, can I get a motion to approve the schedule that Jeremy just explained? Amy makes a motion, looking for a second. Adam makes a second. Okay, all those in favor?
As written. Thank you.
That's written, okay? You get your aquifer schedule done. All right, then the next item on the agenda is coastal site plan number 379, budget information application number 441, land funding and grading application number 562, site plan application number 311, also known as PL 23-191, Great Island Access Expansion at 0 Great Island Road, request for extension of time. That was a 2023 application?
You know, what Ed realized is that although the application's been approved, it was about 6-8 months ago, that it's not likely to proceed in the next month or two.
But the PL 23 is what's throwing me off.
Right, it might have been late, you're right, it might have been late 23 submitted, acted on, I think it was
You got it in the spring of last year.
March, April maybe. It was when it got approved eventually, I think.
Yeah.
So what I've suggested to Ed is rather than waiting and waiting to submit the extensions, submit it now, ask for 2 years. We're not sure how long the litigation is going to take. As you may recall, they're widening the driveway. There's some beautiful trees on one side that will have to be removed as part of the driveway expansion. That has been appealed to, first to the tree warden and now to Stamford Superior Court.
Okay. So the proposal on the table is the town of Darien is requesting a 2-year extension for the above listed application. Section on page 9. Any questions, comments on that one?
So they're appealing the tree warden's decision?
No.
Yes.
But yeah. The
They did
neighbors,
not,
a neighbor.
A neighbor and a
there were two separate, a neighbor and someone else who lives in town. They did not appeal the P&Z decision.
Right.
They appealed the tree warden's decision.
Perfect.
So it's not, it's a general meeting, so we just need to take a straw vote. All those in favor of extending it? Six done. You're done.
Just know those trees are not beautiful, they should be cut down immediately.
Well, the trees are there, they've been there a long time. We'll leave it at that, I guess.
That's a better explanation of the trees.
Yes.
The
There are
next,
some beautiful trees on Grand Island,
Not those.
okay, the next item on the agenda is approval of minutes from November 12th. In your packet, you got minutes, Ovani, Balgash, Porsanti, Ned, and Rather there. Jamie was absent. I don't know if you watched it on TV or not. Yeah, you almost got nominated for chairmanship since you weren't here. Be careful next time.
George got the polite review.
Yeah, right there.
But he was the chairman, I think, of the
He still
Black Review
is.
before he even got nominated.
Still is.
There you go. So there's a public hearing on Pratt Island. We did another couple items that were simple. There is a resolution here which we can't change. Are there any questions, comments, typos, scrivener's errors on this one? Nothing jumps out on paper. Okay, with that said, can I get a motion to approve as submitted? Amy makes a motion. George makes a second. All in favor? Minutes are approved. The next item is the approval of minutes from Monday, March 9th. I was absent from that meeting. I think this was solely dedicated to Thorndale Circle. Any questions? Oh, no, there's also a resolution in here too. Any questions, comments, typos, scrivener's errors on this one?
You said March 9th, but it's December 9th.
December 9th. I spoke wrong. Why did I say March? That's weird. There's no, I didn't really read the minutes, but that's all fine?
They look good, yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure that's right, so we'll come up. With that said, entertain a motion to approve as submitted. Adam makes a motion, looking for a second. Jan makes a second. All those in favor? 5 to 0 to 1.
Got it, thank you.
I abstain. Okay. The next item on the agenda, I'm recused, so I'm going to split on that one. Do we want to, skipping again, do we want to go over the two deliberations of tonight's hearings, or do we want to punt that to a different day so people can think about it? Well, punt? Okay, all right, so we'll skip that thing. Thank you. The chairman's report, we can punt that to next year. Do you want to do a director's report now when I'm still here, or you do?
No, I think the only thing, and we can talk about it in a couple of weeks, but the legislative session opens tomorrow, Fred?
Yep.
And we're getting a strong sense of a lot of housing bills coming forward, so I'm sure we'll be talking a lot about that in the next couple of months.
Well, let me give you a quick 2-second chairman report if you guys don't mind. I think the town speech, the town speech went well. That was about a month ago. I had fun doing it. I think everybody liked it. I did a little better this year than I did the prior time, I think. But anyway, the thing that's important to me is on Monday there was a front page article, was it Monday, in the Stanford Advocate talking about all the state bills, and you can read it if it's online or not. But all those housing bills are going to come up again. Also, in the same article, in the same paper, was the discussion of the issues that New Canaan's having with regards to 830G, whether it's in litigation law. All this stuff comes together. So at some point in time, maybe we can have a working meeting among the commission to speak about this stuff. It's I don't know, Jamie, if you're familiar with it, but maybe you are, because you get into, I think you kind of get into that stuff. But when these bills come in, they're fast and furious, and Fred watches them, and they start out as 64 pages, then it goes down to 20 pages, and then it goes up to 75 pages, and it was really hard the first couple of years that I started watching it. And you do a great thing. We land up putting in testimony. 90% of the time I speak to, the vice chairman or someone else with regards to this testimony opinion. Fred usually drafts, 90% of the letters when we do submit testimony. And I always check in with the first selectman too, but that's something that I think it matters a lot to the town of Darien. I think our electorate wants us to chime in on this stuff. It's definitely not a one-man band. It's definitely just not me, but I want to make sure we're on top of this. We do not have a moratorium. I don't know how close we are to one. That's one of the things that we're going to look at this year, but until some of the other new projects come online, we're not going to have a clue of where we are. And when they tried to change the zoning, I think they wanted to make it 30 units per acre within a mile of every single train station. I did some study on it. You could put it 6,000 units near our 2 train stations. And the thing that's important is the lot that's at Norotan Heights. That lot is effectively owned by the state of Connecticut. And then the lot that is by the 2 lots that are over by the town of Darien station, which is 2 Squab Lane and then the Coons lot. There was a provision one year where the state had the right of condemnation rights to take it. I told that to the Dossetti family, and I said, you gotta do something, because if it's a lot, the state can take it and they can do whatever they want with it. Those are the things that kind of come up. It's the same suspect, it's not suspect, it's the same, for the most part, the same legislative people that work on this stuff. And eventually, something's gonna happen, but it's just something that we have to be mindful of, and these guys do a great job on it. What else do I want to speak about? That's really pretty much it. The other item is, we did it a couple times. We did a, what was it, it was initiatives. Initiatives or strategies of what we want to do for the year. It's something that I start to think about, during the Christmas break and in the month of December, on what we want to put forth for 2025. One of the items was the fines for that. It came up in the city town speech. The other item is, you probably saw in the newspaper, there's a building that we've not seen yet that's proposed along Old Kings Highway. That was a front page article in a newspaper. Jeremy and Fred had spoken to those guys in the past, but that is a plan that was done by Fred Conzi like 12 years ago to change Old Kings Highway to residential. Eric Voigt worked on it way back when too. It never went into fruition because the building that was a key in the middle got leased up. That building is effectively it's not empty now, but it's something there. So anyway, that's part of, those are some of the things we might look at in 2025. Plus, at the same time, we have the town plan of conservation development going on, and that's going to open up all kinds of things to think about and talk about. But I think that's it. Do you want to add anything before I?
No, we're working on the first meeting on the town plan, will likely be the end of this month. We're still pinning it down, but it's likely to be the 28th, where the consultants will come in, talk to the commission.
Introduce themselves, and we barely know them.
Kind of get the ball rolling on that whole thing.
Are they going to have more people than just the two people that we met on the team?
I don't know who they're going to bring with them, but they do have other people on the team that will probably be working in the background. I know when we took them on the tour of the back of the community a couple weeks ago, there were at least one other person with them. So
was it
it was Sarah and Neil who did present, and then they brought another gentleman who I think does a lot of their mapping work and graphics work.
Okay, and they already tied into our GIS system and all that.
Yep,
all that
we've
stuff.
talked about how can we get them files, upload documents, so we can get stuff to them, photographs, reports, regulations, and things that they all have it at their fingertips.
Do they have like a password they can get into the GIS?
They have one of those, some kind of Dropbox or something that, and then Fred will.
Yeah, we're setting them up with the technology they need to have, to have full access to our mapping and zoning, the past plan documents, and really everything else they need.
Well, we did it 10 years ago. I think Glenn Chalder, and the GIS system in OpenGov was just coming online at the same exact time. And so half the stuff that he did went right into it, and half the stuff that you guys did went right into his, so it worked really well.
So we'll probably spend maybe a meeting a month on it. They haven't finalized the schedule, but when you talk about initiatives we're working on, that's
going to be a big one.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, great. So that's it for me, it's it for you. We talked about, there's no meeting next week, there's meeting 2 weeks from now.
Yep.
And then, so you think the 28th is going to be the meeting?
Yeah, I think we're gonna have one public hearing on the 28th. And then we'll have the consultant start the meeting right at 7 o'clock, and then we'll have that one public
So
hearing.
and 21st is going to be a regular meeting?
We have three minor public hearings. One, the main event, let me rephrase that. There will be 3 public hearings, one of which will be Pear Tree Point Beach, where they're looking to do their sustainability resiliency hub by raising the parking lot, putting in some new plantings, some new drainage, et cetera. So that's one of the applications you'll see that night.
The clock is ticking on that, right?
What does that mean?
Don't they have till like 2028 to get it done by the state?
They do have a state of approval, I believe, so they'll be talking more about that.
Like a deep thing?
Yeah.
Because part of it includes dredging, which is in state jurisdiction.
Okay. With that said, I'm going to recuse myself because there's another item on the agenda. So I'm going to split the names of 2 our very nice and able vice chair. And I will see you, everybody.
I'll just give you this
Oh,
stuff for home.
okay.
You can look at this.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Give me 2 seconds.
Take your time.
Look at me, I got out of here.
You want this stuff from underneath or not?
Yeah, I'll grab it. Thanks.
Huh?
Yes.
Prisoner here.
We just ditch your chair and then you can.
Yeah, you want to move your chair
Oh,
back?
all right.
Over. Musical chairs?
Yeah.
Let's go get a little extra space. Chair?
Sure.
See you.
There you go. Here.
Lucky dog.
Okay, everybody ready to continue? Jeremy, or Fred, you good?
We're good.
All right, so I will read it in for good measure. Deliberations regarding site plan application number 312, special permit application number 340. Excuse me, flood damage prevention application number 448, landfilling and regrading application number 576, PL-24-130, TCNE Metro Development, Inc., 11622 Thorndale Circle, and tax lot number 9, shown on assessor's map number 39. This is the proposal to raise 5 existing office buildings on subject property and construct a new residential community consisting of 5 multifamily buildings, garages, amenity areas, driveways, parking, drainage, utilities, landscaping, and to perform related site development activities within a regulated area. A total of 175 apartments are proposed. The hearing was closed on December 9th, 2024, with a decision deadline of February 11th, 2025. So I believe in our packets today, what was formerly called the blue sheets are now just the talking points for commission deliberations.
That's
I believe Fred might have compiled this. Anything you want to walk us through it? How do you want to handle it?
Yeah, Jeremy and I put this together. You know, we've Adam, as you mentioned, you know, we often put together these talking points for some of the larger projects that the commission considers. And this is no different. You know, we've outlined a number of items for the commission to consider this evening, from site plan considerations to issues regarding flood damage prevention and the landfilling regrading aspects of the application, going into stormwater management, and then you know, some considerations relative to the peer review comments that were submitted by Ty and Bond. Joe Canis submitted multiple comments and letters relative to the engineering and stormwater aspects of the project. Where Hardesty and Hanover, the commission's peer review traffic engineer, submitted multiple comments and considerations for the commission in multiple letters. And then special permit considerations relative to the standards for approval of the project. So Adam, I think we can just start to go through some of these individual considerations and you know, get a feel for what the commission is thinking in terms of you know, moving this forward. Staff will begin to work on drafting a decision that the commission can consider at an upcoming meeting. These deliberations will help, you know, put us in a good spot to get that moving.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so I mean, we might as well just kind of start right at the beginning and talk about, you know, we've got some what I would think are easier, less thorny issues versus some more issues that we want to denote some more deliberation time to, you mainly the curb cut, which I feel will be the big one. But in starting in the beginning, we're talking about the buildings and the use and the size and the coverage of the area. They went back and forth to the ARB multiple times. I think the general look and feel of what they're proposing is in line with one, the regulation change that we made, but two, I think is suitable for the redevelopment of this area, which we noted as a spot that was targeted to be developed in this sort of manner in our past town plan of conservation and development. So I think this type of project is what we want to see in this type of area. I think if you're comparing the scope of the buildings and the styling of the buildings towards something like Parklands, this is a much more thought out and a much architecturally pleasing and sort of merging with the community feel for what is a development in somewhat of a residential area. So I think that it seems, on my view, that aspect of the application is certainly in line with what our regulations say. But I'll open it up. They planned some EV chargers, which was good. There's a lot of walkable land in between the buildings. The street layout is well thought out for not just emergency vehicles, but for use there in general of the residents and anybody else, visitors who come. So, obviously they have several different areas for the Amazon delivery guys, which I'm sure will just more or less live there. I'm surprised they won't open up a building somewhere soon in town to cover that, and they seem like they're everywhere these days. I look as a Amazon delivery driver in an old UPS truck. But I'll open it up. Amy, anything you want to add? Notes of concern on the buildings?
Site plan.
Yeah, site plan type of thing?
We're just talking about the site plan.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yep. I'm glad that the Architectural Review Board had them working on refinements, because I think it came a long way to becoming a little bit more in tune with the Darien architecture.
Yeah.
Streetscape feel.
I think it started more modern and it ended up more residential looking.
I do very much like the use of the open space and landscaping plans. I think I went on record right from the beginning that I'd like to see something on that wetland side to be preserved and enhanced and embraced.
Yeah.
So I'm glad they listened to us on that and did that. So with regards to the site plan considerations, I am a little suspect on some of these fire turning radiuses because in a perfect world, I think when everybody parks where they're supposed to park, and that in a two-dimensional paper drawing, it works. But I think in real life, sometimes people don't always stay inside the lines, so to speak. So it'll be interesting to see if there's going to be modifications that need to be made with regards to some of that. So that's something that I do have a question on.
And I should note too, just piggybacking, it's not listed here in these notes, but this application also went before the EPC, where they spent considerable time not just going over the wetlands protected area, but the shrubbery, the improvements to the brook there, getting out all the invasive vegetation by hand. We saw the landscape guy talk about how they're gonna have to be there every year doing an organically certified type of guy. It's not gonna be like my lawn care guy coming and mowing down the grasses. It's gonna be a whole different thing. So I think that certainly from an EPC approval and an EPC lens of it, it dramatically enhances what is currently there.
Yes.
And that's not even getting into the drainage bit, which we'll talk about next. So, Mike, anything from you on the site plan aspect of it?
No, just sort of echo some of the same thoughts that you had, right? I think we did a couple of good things, or in my opinion, I think we did a couple of good things here. One was obviously landing the multifamily overlay zone. I think it's the right spot for it. It's the right type of property for it. But I think we also did a modification to that, right? Which allowed them to sort of push some of the parking towards the highway, which is, they're thinking about it the right way. They want their residents to be happy. They really, I think, did everything they could, but for maybe the exit onto Hecker, to work with the neighborhood, work with the neighbors, and put together a good project. I think there's plenty of parking. I share your concern, right? But that's an enforcement issue, right? So, if emergency vehicles are having problems with access, then we got to get better enforcement in there, and that's really nothing we can control. We can't control people doing silly stuff. So, I think the way it's drawn up, it looks great. I think they're going to do a good job. Open space, I think they did a great job. They also, I haven't been here for the larger projects before, but walkability. I mean, we talk about it all the time. I've never actually seen someone put a walkability plan in place and present it. Maybe that's done on all of these larger applications, but I really appreciated that, and I think it's a good project.
Yep, and I should note too, there was some back and forth with the fire marshal to identify those things, so it's not that they just said, this is what it's going to be, but they did modify that based on some comments and feedback from them, and ultimately did receive sign off from the fire marshal on that plan. So he says it's
They're
good.
the ones driving the truck.
Yeah, exactly. If they're going to be mowing down curves and they're going to be mowing over curves, like their priority is saving people, not worrying about anything else. So George, just go down the line.
All righty. I'm happy to associate myself with all of your comments. I agree with what I'm hearing. I think that this is an intelligent plan. I love the fact that there are 5 different buildings instead of one colossal building. I think what needs to be understood locally is that actually the owners could have more units in this space. And that may surprise people, but that is true as I understand it. So they have chosen to reduce the number of units in favor of some amenities and some more open space, which I think is to their credit, and alleviates, obviously, some of the congestion, some of the intense use issues that folks have. I have concerns about that. I'm concerned about the number of new vehicles that are going to be using the area, but as I say, they're permitted basically, and so we're going to live with that. And I think they've made intelligent decisions, including garages and things like that. And we'll talk about the Hecker Avenue cut, but the changes they're looking at the Post Road, I think, are also important. So that's a good thing. And I think I can leave it at that for now.
Jamie?
No, I agree with much.
You go first next time.
You're going to go first next.
Exactly.
No, I agree with much of what the other commissioners have said. Appreciate the diligence of the EPC and ARB for the work they've done, and also agree on the internal pedestrian flow, which is something we discussed kind of at the beginning, and we really saw an update at the last meeting, which was very helpful, just thinking about also like the busing and how that would look, the school buses. So I appreciate those questions being answered.
Great. Okay. So that seems like we're broadly in agreement on the site plan, sans some of the other main concern. Thinking of on-site lighting, I think that was kind of covered. Utilities, they obviously got sign off from the sewer commission as well.
Correct.
So that we know that there's not going to be a capacity issue. It's not on a giant septic tank, so it's town water, town sewer. So that's fine and within within scope of the development. So I think that's good. If we're talking about flood damage and prevention, this is probably the single easiest and best part about this project, because currently right now that development has no flood damage prevention mitigation of any kind. It's a giant parking lot that just sheet flows off. There's no retention into Stony Brook. There's no retention systems. There's no type of mitigation, water treatment. There's nothing. And this project dramatically enhances that aspect of it. It adds a significant amount of treatment of the water. It will reduce water flows into Stony Brook on big rainstorms. We know that that's a flooding concern for everybody downstream there. This will absolutely improve that. We heard Mr. Canis's reviews to that effect. I don't think, they went back to the Fresh Meadows folks looking at it, and, it's just an improvement in every possible way. I think that aspect of this plan was thought out and a very, very well done job of it. So I will start with Jamie. Any further comments on drainage or flood?
No, I agree with your comments.
Okay, great. George?
Ditto.
Ditto. Mike, and
I
anything?
think flood prevention, A+.
Yeah, I'm gonna ditto you all the way down to peer review comments. I mean, it's pretty much the same, right?
Yeah.
Flood damage, landfilling, regrading, and stormwater management, I think they nailed it.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a much better project than what's there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think
That's the whole, right, I can't stress enough, that's the whole purpose of doing this type of zoning. I mean, it's
Yeah.
actually what's enjoyable about this job is we're actually doing something proactive to make a site that's otherwise impacting the community a better site. So
Yep.
I think we nailed it on that part as well,
yeah.
except for Hecker. We'll get there.
We'll get there. So yeah, so that pretty much covers that. Now we'll talk about the elephant sort of in the room is the the traffic considerations, which includes kind of the Hecker Avenue curb cut. Now we heard obviously from the traffic consultant, Mr. Del Rio of Hardesty and Hanover. We spent a lot of time about the amount of cars that would be coming either the current Thorndale or the current Thorndale entrance versus sort of the Hecker. We looked at the numbers, we looked at the engineers. I myself personally sat out on Hecker on 4 different mornings at peak rush hour and on 4 different evenings from 5 to 6, just doing car counts of the cars that go up and down Hecker Avenue. It's not a busy street. It's a double lane or a double striped, one way in each direction road. It is not a side street that you put a basketball hoop on and play basketball. It's a main road, right? At nighttime, almost all of the traffic was one way leaving the police station, going to what would be the 95 intersection, going westbound on Hecker. I noticed very few cars coming all the way down Hecker Avenue, even from it. And I parked in the cemetery, basically right outside of where the Hecker curb cut will be. There's a little driveway right there. In the mornings, the traffic is balanced, but it is not a road that experiences backups or constant flow of traffic. It's a car, a minute, 2 minutes, another car. It's not a lot of traffic on that road. They're going to add the fog lines on the road as well, which will sort of mitigate it for the people who do walk on the sidewalk on the north side of the street. I want to say, yeah, the side where this development will be, there's a sidewalk there. Some people walk their dogs, some people go into the cemetery and walk their dogs, I noticed. But there's not a lot of foot traffic. And I observed this in the fall when it was still light out, and when it's dark out in November, I would come before this meeting for 20 minutes and sit out there in addition to this, and you wouldn't see anybody. So even at 6 o'clock at night, nobody's really out there. So I think that the curb cut, I agree with with Hardesty and Hanover. I think the curb cut on Hecker will not really adversely impact this community. I think the dangerous aspect of the road, where we heard the majority of the complaints, are significantly further west, which is where the 95 on-ramp, the kind of the hairball turn, that's not part of this project, and those fog lines should make people slow down on that road. I think if we want to really, if safety is a concern, as opposed to just pure traffic, I think something like in the new town plan of conservation development, thinking about potentially putting a speed median further north by that turn, I think is a good idea. But I don't believe that the traffic considerations from this project are really going to impact that much. I think half the buildings will leave the Thorndale side, the other half will leave the Hecker side, and I think the flow will be mostly balanced. And I don't think, because this is a business, or because this is not a business, the flow patterns will be the opposite. So at nighttime, instead of everybody leaving, heading west on Hecker, you're going to get more people coming from Hecker. On that side of the road is completely unbalanced. And in the morning, it will be the opposite effect.
Before we go too far, what is a speed median?
Not like a speed bump, but imagine like a hump, where rises like 6 inches, and then there's like a long plate for like 3 or 4 feet, and then just to slow the cars down. You know what I mean? So like kind of like some way to like another speed prevention to slow it down near that turn. You know,
The
it's
fire department, I think, frowns on those
Yeah.
nowadays, and so do I.
Do you mean on Hecker Avenue?
yeah, something to slow traffic on that north of this development or west of this development by the 95 turn, because
Yeah.
that was the concern we heard. That's the concern that I think most people experience. Where this curb cut is not a lot of traffic. It's right across from the cemetery. There's no development there. There's no houses across the street. There's no, there's not a lot right in that general area. So that's my opinion. I noticed the traffic was lower than what the estimates were in his, study from my observations. But yeah, so I will start on this side.
Yep.
Amy, anything to add to the Hecker
A couple of things.
traffic thoughts?
They recently repaved and restriped Goodwise River Road, and they have the fog lines there now. And it is a very circuitous, meandering
Yep.
road with lots of curves and blind hills. And I will say, I think it has made a big difference.
Yeah, I've
in
noticed it
making
too.
people stay in their lane and slow down. So I would like to think that would have some effect on Hecker.
And that's a road with no sidewalks, where this one does have a
Yes,
sidewalk, at least
with
on
no
one side of the
sidewalks
street.
and very limited sight
Yes.
lines. So I do think that's a positive thing. One of my bigger concern, quite honestly, is you can make the argument with the Hecker curb cut when they did the analysis with and without, that it was marginally moved the needle either way, and you could make that argument to say, then why do you need it? Or then you could flip the coin over and say, and if you have it, it won't be a problem. So in my mind, it seems to be more from the professional standpoint, a net neutral. I do have concerns a little bit on the other exit with regards to some of the things that they want to do, which I think are going to be critical. And it's a state road and it's going to need state approvals on pulling that stop
back
sign out. Just as personally, I try to exit that area in the mornings twice a week. I attend a Pilates class in there and come out twice a week, and it's hard to see and it's hard to get perspective. I do think we need to put something in the resolution with regards to no trucks can park in front of the Nielsen's garden center, because when a truck is parked there, when they do deliveries, they have to figure out a different way to do their deliveries. You cannot see, and it's when you have a lot of people exiting in the morning trying to get to their train or trying to get to their office, I could see that being a problem. So I have bigger concerns about making sure what happens if the state says no to those things.
Can we, because they proposed modifying that
Yeah.
intersection, can we put in as part of our resolution?
And I know it's kind of like
something-
cloud car wash.
Yeah, like on the street, can we put that in, even though it's so far away from the property?
Yeah, I think we can put it in. The applicant is going to need to get final approval from OSTA for any of these traffic improvements directly on the post road, directly on the state road. With that being said, my recollection is that the improvements are still set back outside of the travel lanes of the post road. The current situation is that the stop sign and stop bar is considerably back from the travel lanes.
It's hard to see.
Yeah.
It's hard to see, because when you're back that far, and you have the street trees in front of Land Rover, and if there's anybody parked in front of Nielsen's, you have to go out to where they're proposing them to be anyway,
Yeah.
to actually
To
make a
get there, you gotta
safe
crawl through it.
decision. So that's basically what people are doing anyway.
But unlike Cloud, where we made it a condition, if it doesn't happen, then this is a no-go, because they had only the one exit with the stoplight. I think when we're putting that in as a condition of approval, it's something that doesn't necessarily have to be an a priori thing to be done, but when the approval does come, let's say if it's later and it's 2 years down the road, they must do it then. Otherwise, the permit's revoked.
And then the other question I have is, even though it looks like there's pavement that goes all the way up to Nielsen's parking, there's that stretch there that's, where they park their tractor trailers and when they unload. If that is technically part of the Boston Post Road, or is that technically on the survey part of the Nielsen's property? If it is part of the Nielsen's property, we have a co-owner here. I would like to make that a requirement that they do something with that to make it safer if they are denied from the state. And I mean, I know you might not have these answers now.
Yeah, I'll have to pull the surveys.
I believe it is in the state right of way.
It's not, but the owner has a vested interest in making it happen.
Well, I understand, I don't know how you do that. But anyway,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Those are my deliberations.
Yeah, I think the problem there, George, is that they presented it, right? They presented improvements to that entire travel way.
Yeah, for the Thorndale Circus.
Right,
Yeah.
so.
Circus.
Right, it's really there. But so I think that, they kind of put it under our purview, right? Like, I know it's not part of the land of the application, but they proposed.
Right, the plan shows new parallel parking here at this entrance and
Yeah.
some changes.
And street parking along that as well that they're planning on using. So I think that we can, put conditions on that they, I mean, they presented.
Subject to the state, I would assume.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course,
Yeah.
of course, yeah.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, Hecker, I'm very sympathetic to the residents on Hecker and the changes that are happening there and the proposed changes for their street. Very sympathetic, but I really challenged both sides, both the applicant and our experts on the difference of having it, not having it, the comments about even the police commission, their comments, and how is that actually going to, so the only thing I would say there, and just to cut to the chase, because, I'm trying not to be Steve and drag this out too far, but the only thing I would say there is if there are problems, right, and that's really what the police commission report said, is if this becomes a problem, then.
For their response time and they're getting out.
Correct.
Yeah.
Then
People
there
highlight it,
has
yeah.
to be a solution, and I've thought about it a bit, and I think the solution is that exit goes away, and it becomes an emergency vehicle crash gate, which we've talked about a bunch of times. And so my proposal would be, look, let them try it, and if it does become emergency vehicle problem, people making U-turns to get around back into the exit only part, right? Right?
Yeah.
Then we've got to measure to fix that, because right now I think if we just say, yeah, it's fine, and there is a problem, right?
How do we do that? Do we have them issue
You're
a
saying
report
is you
once a year?
want a stopgap to be built into the approval.
Correct.
So the residents of Hecker don't have to come back and force something to happen.
Correct.
You wanna.
Correct, and in the monitoring of that, I would
If
leave to the
then-
police.
Just ad hoc, or should, like we've
I
done.
don't think we need to have them present a report, but if
That's what I'm
if it
saying.
becomes an issue for police response times and the police commission says, hey, we've got an issue here, there should be something built into our resolution that assists them.
Can I ask a quick question about that? I think Greg said that we would still need the fire marshal to approve the new turning radiuses if that were to happen.
So
Right?
that's why I
that
was
would
gonna
be part of that. Yeah,
well, so
right.
that's why I'd make it a crash gate, so they can
Okay.
still, the emergency vehicles can still use it, right? So they can go in.
Obviously, it would need to be approved.
Right.
Like,
Okay.
Yeah, reviewed by by
Reviewed
the
and
authority,
approved, yes.
So you're saying in the first instance, it's open for exit as described, right?
As proposed, yeah.
But if that doesn't work, then it could become a exit, emergency use only.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Which is not, I think actually, isn't that what they do where the piercing application, isn't the back exit, that used to be an open exit when I was a kid?
I think you'd have to bust right through that thing.
Right, but now there's
There's
a
a
crash
gate
gate there.
That's correct.
right?
This is on West Avenue, about 50 feet north of the intersection of West and Post. There's a little gate that you can't go through the alley. You're
Right.
correct, George.
But that used to be open.
At one point, it was open. I don't remember who closed it or why, but it used to be open.
But I would propose something similar here, that, look, if this becomes an issue and the police commission
Right,
is.
as documented by the police commission.
Correct. Yeah, that would be my only suggestion on Hecker. I think, again, we question we questioned all the experts on it pretty intently, and, you know, we got pretty
Well,
succinct
neutral was a
response.
good word.
Was it?
Neutral, I thought was a
Neutral, yeah,
good word.
it was a pretty
Just
resounding,
about,
it's gonna be
just about,
okay.
not exactly, but just
Yeah.
about.
Yeah. So that was it.
Yeah.
The commission does include a standard condition of approval in all of our approvals, which reads, in evaluating this application, the Planning and Zoning Commission has relied on information provided by the applicant. If such information subsequently proves to be false, deceptive, incomplete, or inaccurate, the commission reserves the right after notice and hearing to modify, suspend, or revoke the permit as it deems appropriate. So we can take that and expand it with, you know, some of the additional information that came out of the police commission, you know, your concerns relative to, you know, if traffic volumes prove to be an issue, if response times prove to be an issue, that, you know, the commission can in fact modify the approval.
And
I
that
think
carries
we-
with, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, I think we want to make it much more about the police being able to do it, because
I would say emergency vehicles.
your emergency, you know,
Right.
first responders versus like somebody just hiring a traffic consultant saying there's,
Yeah, no,
there's
this
more
is-
traffic on
right.
it, and you said that there wasn't going to be traffic, and now there's 2 more cars than what your guy estimated, and I want to shut, you know, like, there has to be a way to avoid that. So I think there
Right.
needs to be more, as opposed to that standard boilerplate language, something more about police, fire, EMT, you know, deciding that, you know, it's becoming
It's
an
causing
issue
a
for
problem.
their
Right.
response times to not just this particular community, but to Darien as a whole, right? Because we don't want to hold up the police or fire from getting somewhere else.
A documented pattern,
Yeah,
right? I
something
mean,
like that.
Not
A one-off.
Yeah.
exactly, not a one-off.
Not a one-off and not a neighbor, you know, complaint doing a study, right? I want it to come from the people who are using this for emergency access, right? Like if the police commission comes back and says, hey, we've got a problem, post 53 comes back, we've got a problem, we need to have something in place to address it and address it quickly, because we have 1 police station in town.
Yeah.
That
Sorry,
carries
Shane,
with the
sorry.
land records then?
Carries with their
Yeah.
approval.
Yeah, that's a good question. Usually with these approvals, it's a special permit application. So the special permit form gets filed in the land records, which alerts people to the fact that there's an approval on record in our office. And those are public records, so people will often come in and look at old approvals. We just did a couple today. Hey, the example was the hair salon. What were their limits and restrictions on parking and traffic?
Right.
So, very common.
So it would it be quite an additional expense, right, if a new,
Right.
right.
But I think that if the commission is upfront, here's what we're gonna be looking at.
Just 2 quick comments. One is that I'm guessing there'll be more of a queue forming within the Thorndale Circle property to get onto Hecker than there's going to be a problem on Hecker. And the other thing is I was pleased to hear that structure that they're going to put at Hecker and the Thorndale Circle that directs you to a right-hand turn or coming in, that's going to be a soft thing so that emergency vehicles can come over it without damage. So those are intelligent, I mean, that's an intelligent remedy for a potential problem.
Yeah. Okay. Any
My questions were answered.
Okay. Okay, so that covers the Hecker. Signs and lighting, you know, I think we kind of went over that briefly. There's plenty of signage. I think the lighting plan is good. It's soft. It goes in with everything else. Looking at this special permit considerations, you know, we've touched on it. Certainly the location, size of use, we modified, like Mike said, to apply the overlay zone to specifically allow kind of parking in what otherwise is an unreally desirable spot, you know, right behind 95. Like, you don't really want to put a house or an apartment building right on top of a 6-lane highway. So I think that was a good idea, and I think they've used it well and designed this property, you know, very well based on like, you know, where it is and where it's situated, kind of sandwiched between 95 and the brook. In terms of safety, I don't think there's any real issue with safety. They've got the lights out there. It's pretty well lit at night. And as we know, it's right next to the police station, so it's probably going to be the safest place in town to live, I could imagine. So I imagine the safety aspect here is one of the few things versus I know, for example, when we did Parklands, which has that wooded area, it's kind of in the back of Darien. It's kind of in more of a businessy zone where there's limited residential. Safety was a much bigger concern there. I think here that is not the case. I don't think we have to really worry too much about safety. All of the apartments are kind of above the floodplain, so I don't think we have to worry about flooding the way that we normally would, like we did on Sedgwick. So that's it. I'll open it up down the line to any further additional comments, things we might want to see in any kind of condition. The number they've done, we didn't touch on it in this, but certainly there's going to be a number of affordable units in here. I think 22. They're going to 27.
14%.
14%. They're going to be over.
175.
Yeah, they're going to be over the required amount versus under, and then fee in lieu. So I think that that's a good thing. We know there will be about 19 school students in here.
Yep.
So this project is designed less like a Corbin district, trying to appeal towards more younger families, starting out families, people trying out the area, versus more of a mellower, I'll say, or calmer vibe based on its location. I think we'll end up seeing that as well. So I think it'll be a great addition there for some students or for people that are looking to downsize in town.
And to play off of that as well, I also took a lot of confidence in when Mr. Flaherty went through the estimates on all prior
spot on,
what their estimates were, what their actuals were, and the methodologies that were used on those projections being the same methodologies used here. So
19 was what he came. I don't think we're going to see 50 kids in here. I don't think we're going to see 2 either. I think it's going to be 18 or 20.
It made me say, boy, we need to do that same audit on traffic.
Yeah.
Because I do, the question that I did raise is what are some of the issues that are happening in Norwalk and the developments and the background noise estimates as to what traffic elevations are going to be. I do think we as and this is, I digress on the plan of conservation and development, but
getting into that.
It is something that we're going to need to really take a deep look at overall traffic.
I do want to suggest that the Avalon number of students came in higher than I think they originally anticipated by almost twice.
But that was not one of the references that he made with regards to this.
Well, that may be why I didn't include
Yeah.
it. But anyway, that wasn't so accurate, but more recent had been more accurate.
And those are, from a real estate agent's perspective, those are big apartments.
Oh.
They don't make apartments that
Family
big
friendly.
anymore. Yeah,
More
they're
family
way more family friendly.
Okay, good.
Mike, anything additional you want to add?
Additional.
I will skip George and go to Jamie.
I don't have anything else.
Save the best for last. Mr. Riley, any further comments, considerations, things?
I guess the one thought I will throw out just so that we have considered it is the blue light the safety issue.
I brought that up, yeah.
You did, or you asked some other time? Yeah. Just out by where they're going to be walking around the ponds and whatnot, whether there should be some fail-safe system out there is just something I suppose we could leave to the owners. Maybe that's, I'm not impressed that the headquarters is right next door because it's going to be remote and it's probably going to be a little dark and whatnot.
That walking path.
But I suppose the owners will know what their liability is in that regard.
Yeah, and I
What
believe
deals with that? Is that part of the building process?
If they want to put it in?
Yeah.
Certainly, if someone wanted to put it in, I guess they would just need an electrical permit for something like that.
we could put, as needed for safety as a condition of approval, and address it in the building. I mean, I asked them specifically about that, I believe in one of the hearings, and they said, even universities kind of don't do that anymore, those sort of like blue light panic buttons, because there's apps and it's so lit up now. Obviously, I haven't been to university in a long time. I'm getting long in the tooth here. It's been almost 20 years. But no, I agree with you. So, I mean, I'm certainly okay with something like, if needed for safety reasons during the build process, if they want to add some
Just as a-
conduits and some lighting around that walkway, especially like,
Yep.
I think where George is talking probably on the far, so the west side of that sort of like circular dog.
As you get further
walk.
away.
Yeah, but where you're abutting sort of the open space, I can imagine that little bit. But then, you know, like 95 is right there. And it's not exactly gonna be in the middle of New Canaan Woods area. You know, it's gonna be, I think, just ambiently lit more so than a lot of places in town, just because it's right on the highway, so.
95 is the root of all evil around here.
Tell me about it.
It's
So,
in pretty close proximity to the Hecker Avenue curb cut in that area as well, I
Yeah.
believe.
Okay.
And the other,
Yeah.
and the buildings
Yeah.
are right there.
yeah,
Yeah, it may be just an affirmative statement that we are leaving to the builders to determine whether it is appropriate.
Needed.
to
And if you
have-
want one, consider it approved.
yeah, something
And
like that.
For the record, we considered it and highlighted it for their
Yep.
consideration.
Okay. I think that about, I don't think we need to have another powwow session about it.
No, put
So
pen to paper.
then I would say I would instruct staff to put together some type of draft approval, and we can, you know, mark that up and debate on it at a subsequent meeting, probably on the 21st.
21st, possibly 2 weeks from tonight, if everyone's gonna be here. We'll aim to do that.
Yeah, we'll aim to get it
We
on
have
for the
a
21st.
somewhat, I know it's a bigger one, right, so it gives you the next week to kind of deal with it, but we do have only, we have 2 meetings before it has to be approved, so.
We have the
3.
21st, the 28th, February 4th, and February 11th,
We got time.
something like that.
Oh, okay, so we have
Yeah.
4th and the 11th. For some reason, I thought we only had one
Okay.
before that.
So,
Okay, so we do have more time. I was thinking we only had 2 or 3 meetings, so we do have time, okay. Great, so yeah, so I'll let you guys start drafting it up, and then we can, I'm sure we'll mark that up, and I'll have 18,000 conditions of approval anyway. Great.
Yep.
Okay.
Good.
Well, that concludes that, so I believe that takes us to any other business. Well, we'll do upcoming meetings, January 21st and 28th, we briefly heard. We'll have public hearings on both of those 2 nights with some applications, and then we'll meet the consultants on the 28th.
28th.
Excellent. That's it. Any other business? I see none, so I will make a motion, or have a motion to adjourn. Mike makes a motion. Jamie makes a second. All those in favor? 5-zip.
Good.
Meeting closed.